Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video it is a highly requested one because I will be talking about how to find a job in Switzerland. Now there's many reasons why people would choose to work in Switzerland, and one of the main reasons would no doubt be because of the high salaries. Median income in Switzerland is about 6,300 per month, and that is really considered the highest in the world. There's also good work-life balance, and also considering that unemployment levels in Switzerland has stayed relatively stable even during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's video is really meant for people who are looking to move long-term to Switzerland for a job, or if you, like myself, have been staying in Switzerland for a period of time and you are looking for something that is more sustainable and long-term for your professional careers. I'm also especially addressing the concerns of people who are considered trailing spouses who have in the past, like myself, moved to Switzerland because of their spouses or their partner's job, and you are looking for a professional restart despite being highly qualified, but you don't speak French or German in Switzerland. So I won't be talking about like temporary jobs like bartending, babysitting, or teaching English. I'll be talking more about long-term, sustainable professional career options. So stay to the end of the video because I'll be sharing with you important tips and how I managed to find my very first job in Switzerland with no word of French. And in case you have not subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button down below, and without further ado, let's get going. So before I start, I thought that I should probably give you some context as to how and why we ended up in Switzerland in the first place. So as I mentioned in quite a few of my videos, I was here in Switzerland since 2019, and it was mainly because of Vincent's, my husband's job back then. He was offered a full-time position to work in Switzerland, and we decided that it was a good time to move since we were quite young back then, and it was just a good opportunity to move abroad and to experience living in a different country. But that also meant that I have to leave my job. At that point, I was working in Singapore for a government agency. I was in SkillsFuture, if some of you might know, and I have always been in the field of workforce development and education. So I started working shortly 3 months after I arrived in Switzerland, and that was a major surprise because before I came, there were so many naysayers that were saying that, oh my gosh, you're gonna have a hard time finding a job in Switzerland because you don't know the language, you're a foreigner, they are very racist, all that sort of things. But no, it didn't turn out that way. So I was very lucky in that sense. And for my second job, it took me a little bit longer because I was actually unemployed for 9 months. But more about that later on. So eventually I got my second job working for an educational startup in e-learning in Geneva. And then from my last and final job currently, which I'm working at today, I am working for a football association in Europe and also in workforce development and e-learning. So that is my whole job history in Switzerland. So in summary, in the span of 4 years, I've changed 3 jobs. So that's a bit crazy. Before you go about finding a job in Switzerland, the first requirement that you need is to have obtained a work permit. So there are many different types of permits in Switzerland. There is the B permit, the C permit, the G and the L. There's so many. I will list down the description down below so you get a link for understanding what are the different types of permit. But in my case, I have the B permit. And how easy it is for you to obtain the permit will also depend on whether you are an EU citizen or if you are a citizen of the EFTA, which is the European Free Trade Association. The process is generally much harder for non-EFTA citizens because there is a lot more requirements for you to be able to obtain the permit. The employer has to go through a lot of legal and administration hurdles. For instance, they have to first prove that no other EU or EFTA citizens are able to do the job, and you must also be a specialist with highly qualified skills. And thirdly, because there is a very limited number of quota for B permits. So in the case in 2023, there is only 4,500 quotas for B permits for non-EFTA citizens. So you're fighting with competitors from all over the world for just 4,500 permit, and you're just going to get one of them. So it's really, really competitive. Using us as an example, my husband we are Singaporeans, so we're not part of the EU. And indeed, the employer really had to go through a lot of hurdles and legal administration. The process took months before my husband was able to obtain the B permits. And in my case, I was on a spouse because I was married to my husband. So what happens if you are a spouse or if you are if you are married to someone with a B permit, you will be automatically granted the B permit as well, and this is under the family reunification permit. So whatever that my husband received, I got the same permit as well. So I think that is something that is quite well done in Switzerland, because it's not the case like say in Singapore, if you come to Singapore for work, it doesn't automatically mean that your spouse would have the same work permit. Sometimes it comes with the case that your spouse will not be able to work. However, if you're not legally married, like you're just a partner, you don't have a legal wedded status, then you will not obtain this same permit status. My first piece of advice is really regarding your mindset, and that is to be flexible. If your goal is to live and work in Switzerland, I would say that for your other job expectations when it comes to like salary, or whether you can work from home, whether it's something within your professional niche or in your industry, I would say put this all aside and just focus on getting that first job. Because once you are able to at least say that you live and you work in Switzerland, then you can consider strategizing your next step as to getting that dream job, because it gets so much easier once you have your foot inside the labor market, and it just gives more credentials and you have the level of experience to add on to your resume, and that will really help on for your second job. Just in case you were wondering how much I was drawing for my first salary in Switzerland, it was not very high at all. In fact, I was drawing 4,500 Swiss francs, which was maybe about 6,000 plus Sing dollars. But you have to consider that in Switzerland, taxes are very high, expenses are very high, and I would say that the minimum salary in Switzerland, there isn't a minimum wage in Switzerland, but very, very minimum, the most decent salary would be about 4,000. And I was at 4,500. But since it was my very first job, I didn't even like think twice, like, oh, is it too low for me? I just take it, because that was the only option I had back then, and having a job was better than having nothing. So it's been a few years ever since, and definitely my compensation has increased quite a bit, but just laying it out that for my first job, it was about 4,500, and I was super happy at that point to actually land my first job. Yeah. Another factor to consider when it comes to finding a job in Switzerland would be location. Most of the companies that are hiring expats are usually based in either Geneva or Zurich. These are the two main international hubs. Granted, there are a lot of niche industries in other parts of Switzerland. So for example, in Lausanne, there is quite a bit of pharma, and in another part of Vaud, near Neuchâtel, there is a very specific production site for watchmaking. But again, these are very close industries, and they mostly would only prefer locals for the job. So if you are staying somewhere that is a little bit more far away from the main international hubs like Geneva or Zurich, I would say that your chances of finding a job would be slightly more difficult. So you want to position yourself at the cities with maximum advantage. So I would say that places like Geneva, Zurich and Zug would be your best options in terms of location. Another common strategy that people use to find a job in Switzerland is to opt for an internal transfer. That is to say that you have already been working for a Swiss company from wherever that you're from, say from Singapore, and you apply for an internal transfer, say a couple of stints in Switzerland. And that is a much easier way for you, because then you would already have the permit to work, and you can then make use of your time in Switzerland to familiarize with the surroundings and also network. Granted, you have to stay with your attached company for that period of time, but the fact that you are here gives you a lot more advantage in terms of building up your local networks, learning the language, and also just having more options to learn more about other companies that are based in Switzerland. The next tip I have for you is to check out dedicated websites meant for job postings. So some of the websites where you can find good job opportunities in Switzerland would be jobs.ch, glassdoor.com, totaljobs.com, thelocal.ch and seasonworkers.com. There is also good Facebook groups that are meant only for English-speaking job opportunities. Some of the groups that I've been inside would be Women Rock Switzerland, and also this group called English Speaking Job Opportunities in Switzerland. I will link them down in the description because I don't remember the full list of these Facebook groups, but usually some recruiters or people that are maybe in smaller companies, they will just put up like their job postings there, and you can respond to the advertisement immediately from there. tip to point out, say if you're living in the French side of Switzerland and you happen to see job descriptions that are in French, don't be put off by it and don't not give it a try, because most of the time these job descriptions might be posted up by junior recruiters, and because they speak French themselves, so the job postings would necessarily be in French. But it's more important for you to look at what exactly the job description says. You should try to look out for key phrases. For example, if they say langue de travail anglais or anglais nécessaire or anglais impératif, that just means that you will be using quite a bit of English for this job, and it's not 100% necessarily for you to be speaking the local language. So that will be a good sign for you. Another great tip I have for you is to apply for companies that are MNCs and happen to have their headquarters in Switzerland. So this could also be Swiss companies themselves, for example, like Philip Morris, Nestle, Johnson & Johnson, Novartis, UBS. There's just so many of them. Because these are large MNCs with a global presence, it most likely means that at their headquarters, they will be looking after the international or regional EMEA scope, and the workforce is most likely going to be multinational. You won't be speaking a lot of French or German. Instead, English will very likely be your local working language. So that was certainly my case for my current job, where I'm working for a regional football association. And even though there's no doubt quite a lot of Swiss and also French speaking colleagues here, but English is predominantly my working language, and I'm not required to speak French or speak German for my job. Which brings me to my next point, which is related to learning the local language. If you're trying to find a job in Switzerland, be it if you're only looking for an English-speaking job, I would say it's so much worth your time and investment to learn the local language, simply because this will really help you so much with your networking and with your daily conversations and communications with your future colleagues. So from my experience, for my first job, and I was working for a startup, because the nature of the job was so international, I was working for companies that were based in Middle East and Africa, so I wasn't really required to speak French for my first job. But for my second job, which was really a Swiss-based company in Geneva, where a lot of my clients are speaking French, I felt that it was imperative, it was important for me to at least be able to read and understand the emails that were coming in French. It was also helpful that at least I could join in some of the conversations with my colleagues, because most of the time for their daily conversations, it's all done in French, even during meetings as well. Like, they try their best to be speaking English for the meetings, but a lot of times they just switch back to French because it's just so much more comfortable. And for my part, I just felt that, okay, I'm the minority here and I should really just try to integrate and to learn as much as possible. So I think that was the time that I really improved a lot for my French, simply because of the context of my environment, that I really wanted to fit in, and I just wanted to be able to understand what the hell was going on at work. If large international companies are not suitable, or you just don't like the idea of working for a large bureaucratic organizations, then a startup would be also a good option to consider and to apply for. And that was certainly my case for my first job in Switzerland. So for the first 3 months when I first arrived in Switzerland, I was like spamming applications everywhere, and then I realized that it doesn't seem to be working out. So I tried a different route by applying for this smaller startup. There was no more than 10 persons at that point. It was a really small company that was in Lausanne, but it was still in my field within education and e-learning, and I just thought, like, why not give it a try? And soon enough, I got this first job. Mainly because they really wasn't looking for anyone that was like local or Swiss. It wasn't necessary for the job. They just really needed someone that has the niche and the specific skills to do program development and also content development for e-learning. And I happened to fit the bill. And so despite not speaking good French at that point, back in 2019, I managed to get my first job, and that was by going through the startup routes. Also because for smaller startups, they don't really have that rigorous HR process and screening. It's a lot more informal and casual. Usually it's just like a meetup with the founders, and you know, there's not so much like interview process like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. It's really a lot more casual. Like how it was for me was just a meetup with the founder and a quick presentation on my past works, and then I just got a job. So I felt that at least for the startup route, you don't have to be so stressed up over the whole recruitment process. It's usually a lot more relaxed and casual. At least that was my experience. The next tip I have for you is to not just consider the full professional route, but also consider the education route. Like if you ever thought of taking a master's program in Switzerland, I think this would be a good chance to do so while you're in search for a job, because more often than not, internships are the best way for you to enter a company and really just get a leg up in terms of your networking. So I know at least 2 persons within my social network that got their jobs through internships, and the best example was my husband Vincent. So what happened was that he was still at that point back in 2018, he was taking a master's in NUS, and there was an exchange program that allowed him to work and study in Switzerland. So he was studying at EPFL in Lausanne, and at the same time he was interning for a Swiss company. And because he did so well for his internship, that gave him this opportunity to network with the colleagues there, to at least let the HR know who he is. And after this 6 months of him working, that gave them more confidence to really invest the time and the opportunity to hire him. And as I said earlier, there's really a lot of administration hurdles for the company to go through to hire this person, and they need to be sure that you are doing a good job for them to want to invest in you. So that is where internships give you so much more advantage as compared to a person that is just applying through the normal route, because the internships already give you a good experience and the familiarity with your hiring manager. And I have another case of another friend who, after arriving in Switzerland, she kind of realized that her professional qualifications from her home country was not as well recognized, even though she had already completed her bachelor's, her master's, her PhD. But after coming to Switzerland, she decided to retake a master's, and that turned out to be for the better, because after the 2 years of taking the master's, she managed to get a full-time job in Switzerland. And I felt that that was really a good investment of her time, because had it not been for this master's, I think she would maybe have a lot more difficulty trying to find a job using the normal professional route. The next important tip is to network, and to network. That's so important in the case of Switzerland, because you would not realize, but 80% of the job market in Switzerland is hidden. That is to say, there are not jobs that you will see online, and even most of the times for the job postings that you see on the websites, most of the time they are just posted up there for legal reasons, but they are already internally filled up by internal connections or by internal transfers. So that's a cruel reality, but this is just how it works in Switzerland. So I say this with so much certainty because this was exactly what I did to land my second job in Switzerland. So I don't think a lot of people know about this, but there was a period of time that I was unemployed for a whole 9 months. So that was during the pandemic, back in 2020, 2021, I can't even remember right now, but I just decided to leave my first job because of a toxic work environment, and it was a bad time to do so because it was during full-on COVID, and the job market has dried up. So that kind of explained why it took me so long to find my second job, and it took a long time, and I was sending in so much applications but receiving no response. So it was a very difficult time for me back then, and I was so discouraged. But it was sometime in December 2020 that I just decided to, I saw this website of this company that I admired a lot, and I felt that why not I just submit my own portfolio and my resume. They were not hiring, there was no job posting. I just decided to send a spontaneous application, and then the boss actually replied me, and then I met up over coffee with her. And during the first session, I still wasn't hired. It was just like a catch up, like a meetup session, like a casual coffee session. And after that, I kind of forgot about it. But a few months later, my future boss actually called me back for this project for an English assignment meant for e-learning in Geneva. So most of the jobs that you get in Switzerland is not done via the official route. It's usually done over more informal meetup sessions, coffee chats. The more you get to know the people in the labor market, the more you speak to people, the more connections you get. It's really much more easier for people to be reminded of your skills and your competencies and to give you that chance. Next tip I have for you is to use this free time that you have to build up your own personal projects, or to do something that you really have an interest in, be it a passion or a hobby. I'm speaking from experience because this was exactly what I did during my 9 months of unemployment. I must admit that during that time, I was feeling very discouraged because I felt that my whole identity was centered around my work, having a job. And when that was taken away from me, I felt quite lost. But thankfully, I was also able to use this free time I have. I decided, okay, why not, right? Since I was already in Switzerland and I could still do some travels around, why not I just document my time? And I also enjoyed writing. I also wanted to, I was already doing a lot of filming and video shooting. So I thought, why not I just start a YouTube channel? And this was how this whole YouTube thing started, because I was unemployed. And yeah, this led me to right now, today, where I'm creating content for you guys about Swiss travel. So it all started because of I was too free. I had nothing to do. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that don't have to see this as a be all and end all, that I have to I need a job for my life to be complete. No, instead you could use this time to just explore for yourself, whether you're someone that is suitable for freelancing or being a self-made entrepreneur, to set up your own business. So there's so much more creativity and options for you to explore when you're not tied down with a full-time job. So don't cancel yourself out and give yourself this chance to experiment what works best for you. My last piece of advice for you is to trust yourself and that it gets better with time. I just want to show you the whole trajectory of my career in Switzerland so you understood how things really just got better. So for my first job, it took me 3 months to find a job. And then for my second job, where I was working in Geneva, it took me 9 months. But for my third job, after I left my second job, it took me just 1 month for me to get my job offer. And I got it even before my last day of my second job. So it just gets progressively easier and easier once you have your leg into the market and once you have acquired the relevant experiences. So I would say don't give up. Understand that this will take time and that it's not your fault if you haven't got what you're looking for. Sometimes it's just the condition of the labor market. Sometimes it's just the number of quotas that they have available. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope that you found this information here useful. And I really want to send out all my best wishes for those of you that are in similar situations where you are here residing in Switzerland and you have been facing difficulties finding a job. I know the whole process. I've been through it myself. I know that it's not easy at all. And I just want to send you a lot of hugs and encouragement and not to give up, because there will eventually be light at the end of the tunnel and you just need to have faith in yourself. If you need someone to talk to, or if you just want to have some more tips and advice on how you can find a job in Switzerland, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email or through my Instagram. I'll be happy to share more of my stories with you. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye!